Trump at a convention talking about the leadership of Iran. And if you listen closely, he even says that they asked him to be the supreme leader.
Seen anything like we're doing in the Middle East with Iran? And they are negotiating, by the way, and they want to make a deal so badly, but they're afraid to say it because they figure they'll be killed by their own people. They're also afraid they'll be killed by us. There's never been a head of a country that wanted that job less than being the head of Iran. I don't want it. We listen to some of the things they say. We hear them very clearly. They say, I don't want it. We'd like to make you the next supreme leader. No, thank you. I don't want it. But I want to express my gratitude to the tremendous.
So that's our president, Donald Trump, claiming that Iran suggested he be the supreme leader. And I don't want it. He said, no, I don't want it. I don't want it. Does anyone out there who knows Trump fairly well think that if he was offered to be the supreme leader of any country, that he would turn it down? I don't really see that happening. And, Iran Trump and his team is saying they're talking with Iran. And then Iran state media is saying, we're not negotiating with them. They must be negotiating with themselves. That was their response. So in the next clip, moving on, we have JoJo from Jersey. Now, we all love JoJo. She's one of our favorites. She's been on the show. She gets along great with Brian. Brian does interviews with her. And so this is her. If you know JoJo, she can rant a little bit, and she's very good at it. So she's saying she's talking about Trump flip-flopping on the war and how ridiculous it is. Let's have a listen.
Let's see if we can sum up Donald Trump's war with Iran. It's a war, but it's not a war. It's an excursion we've already won, but we haven't won. We'll be home in a week, but maybe months. We need regime change, but also we don't. They have nuclear capability, but we destroyed it 9 months ago. But they might get it again, but they can't get it again. But just in case they do, we need another $200 billion to stop them from getting something we already said they categorically do not have. We need the Strait of Hormuz open, but apparently it's just going to open itself like a horny clamshell the second the weather hits 72. We need your help, but we don't need your help. Send a carrier, don't send a carrier. Don't help us and we'll insult you, help us. And we'll probably insult you anyway, because we are Donald Trump and we are profoundly, cosmically, pornographically out of our fucking mind. And how anybody looks at this shit and calls it strategy is just beyond me.
So obviously JoJo from Jersey is very passionate about what she says about Donald Trump. And believe me, if you follow her and if you listen to some of her videos, that was very low key for her. But she makes a good point. She's like, which one is it? Are we at war? Or are we not at war? Did we win? Are we still working on it? Are we negotiating? Are we not negotiating? Are the people behind us? Are the people not behind us? Are we winding down? How could you be winding down if you're sending thousands and thousands of troops? And then there was some news that possibly an F-18 was shot down or injured, that's another super duper, fighter jet aircraft that is almost impossible to shoot down. So if you took away all their missiles and all their capabilities, then first of all, why are there no tankers going through the Strait of Hormuz? And number two, why are you lining up thousands of people at the border and trying to take Karg Island if it's almost over and we're winding down? It really, the back and forth, the hypocrisy is just, it just really does make no sense. In this next clip, we have a good friend of the show, Adam Mockler, who has become massively popular. He's a great debater, young guy, very sharp. I believe he graduated from Harvard, if I'm not mistaken. Somebody can correct me on that if I'm wrong. And he's just cutting into Scott Jennings, which Brian and I think Scott Jennings is just a word salad sandwich. He makes no sense. He just sits there smirking like he knows something. And so let's take a look at this clip of that.
Yes or no? Do you agree with Trump that this war is won?
I agree that we have devastated
Wait, no, do you agree that we've won? He said we've won. Yes or no? It's not a hard question.
No, if I consider a condition of winning destroying their military capabilities, their missile capabilities.
We haven't. Wait. If that's true, why can't the Strait of Hormuz be opened if their military is destroyed? Wait, I want to hear.
Hold on one second. If it is true that we have won, why are we sending the 82nd Airborne?
Thank you.
to be prepared for what happens next. If you exit this with an Iran that has a defanged as it relates to missiles, as it relates to an aggressive navy, you take away their ability to make nuclear weapons, and you leave the remnant here unwilling to be a supporter of terrorism, that is an unequivocal win for the United States of America.
I want to show you the very careful wording Scott is using here. He's saying if that happens, which means that he disagrees with Trump's statement that it already has happened.
Okay, that was the end of the clip. So there you have Adam Mockler basically torching Scott Jennings, who's a wannabe. You know, Scott, maybe we can have people call in later and see if they can nominate Scott Jennings for the Trump Mushroom Gobbler of the Day, because he's definitely wears the Donald Trump knee pads 24/7. When he talks, he makes no sense. He talks in a circle, and it's disconnected, and some of it's nonsensical. And so when he said defanged, if they shot down a jet or almost shot down a jet just yesterday, an F-18, how is that defanged? How does that even make sense, what he's saying? Like I said, nonsensical. Next clip, we have this is a little bit of an older clip, a few months old, but I thought it was important and relevant. It's a student talking to J.D. Vance, and I believe she's in the Hindu religion. And she asked him, when did you decide that there were too many immigrants, and why sell us this dream? We spent our youth here, paid what you asked, followed your path. How can you say we don't belong and remove people that are rightfully here? Let's listen to the clip.
Mother's religion, or how are you teaching them that your kind, their dad? Hello, Mr. Vice President. Thank you so much for giving this opportunity to talk here today. I did not agree with many of the things that you said right ahead of this, but I don't think that's my point to discuss here. What I want to ask is, you are married to a woman who is not Christian. In her Wikipedia, I mean, I just looked that up. I wanted to know what her faith was. I didn't know this before, but she still calls herself Hindu. You are raising three kids in cultural, racial, religious household. How are you maintaining, or how are you teaching your kids not to keep your religion ahead of their mother's religion? Or how are you teaching them that your kind, their dad kind, who got here just few years or few decades ago, is different or is better than your mom's kind, who got here just a generation before? How are you balancing that? And when you talk about too many immigrants here, when did you guys decide that number? Why did you sell us a dream? You made us spend our youth, our wealth in this country and gave us a dream. You don't owe us anything. We have worked hard for it. Then how can you, as a vice president, stand there and say that we have too many of them now and we are going to take them out to people who are here rightfully so by paying the money that you guys asked us? You gave us the path, and now how can you stop it and tell us we don't belong here anymore? So, and one more thing, I'm sorry. One more thing. Sure. Do you have to There's a lot there. I don't know if I'm going to remember all this, but yeah, I will try. I'm sorry. I had to say all of this, and please take it with due. I mean, I'm saying all of this with due respect. Go ahead. Please. I have no intention of causing a scene here or anything, but we're not close to causing a scene. Yeah, don't worry. But we talked about Christianity, all of this. I'm not even Christian, and I'm here standing to show support. Why are we making Christianity one of the major things that you have to have in common to be one of you guys, to show that I love America just as much as you do? Why is that still a question? Why do I have to be a Christian? Okay, so there was a lot there, and I'm going to try to respond to as much of it as I can. So on the question of immigration, so first of all, I can believe that we should have lower immigration levels, but if the United States passed a law and made a promise to somebody, the United States, of course, has to honor that promise. Nobody's talking about that. I'm talking about people who came in violation of the laws of the United States of America, and I'm talking about in the future reducing the number of people
Sorry, what?
Can I continue on that? Because when you just said you are not stopping with the people who came here legally, right? But you are pushing out policies that hurt us. And these policies are not even solving the problems. These policies are just creating chaos.
Ma'am. Okay, so again, I'm gonna finish answering the question, and then if I've answered all 9 of your questions in less than 15 minutes, then we can keep on going. We got to have a little fun, right?
Okay, I thought that clip was relevant. I know it was a little bit long, and I really appreciated this woman's courage to come up to the mic, speak to the vice president, lay down her position, and question him on, where did you come up with this? Who decided? Like, who decided there were too many immigrants, and a lot of them, and most of them were bad, and most of them were criminals, and most of them were not helping society, when most of the immigrants I've ever known in my entire life are nothing but hardworking parents, grandparents, aunts, uncles. They love their children. They love their families. They love this country. And oh, by the way, these are people, okay, if they happen to be here illegally, some have been here for 20 or 30 years or more and had a legitimate job, a legitimate paycheck. And by the way, they paid into Social Security their whole life, but they're not entitled to any of the Social Security when they get older. So my position is, I agree with her. When did we decide that we just didn't want to have these millions and millions of people? Because it would have been just as easy to put them on a program where they could, if they were legitimate and they were hardworking people, they were in the military, they were dreamers, have a program where they could become American citizens legally and legitimately. So I thought it was a good clip for that reason. Moving on. Next we have, I found a clip at Rick Sanchez TV. I want to give him credit for. I don't know the guy. It's a clip of Trump throwing the Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth, under the bus, saying the war in Iran was Pete's idea.
His days may be numbered. You know why? Watch this. This is President Trump, who desperately wants to get out of this colossal mistake with Iran, saying here that it was Hegseth who told him to attack Iran.
And then, unfortunately, I called Pete, I called General Kane, I called a lot of our great people. We have great people. And I said, let's talk. We got a problem in the Middle East. We have a country known as Iran that for 47 years has been just a purveyor of terror. And they're very close to having a nuclear weapon. We can keep going and get that 50,000 up to 55 and 60 is no end. Or we can take a stop and make a little journey into the Middle East and eliminate a big problem. And Pete, I think you were the first one to speak up. And you said, let's do it.
Yeah, it was Pete. Pete was the one he was the first one to speak up. Did you catch that? Yeah, and by the way, Pete's doing a great job. I love this guy. Doing a great job, Pete. But again, watch what he says at the very end about Pete.
And Pete, I think you were the first one to speak up. And you said, let's do it.
Yeah, Pete said, let's do it. He told me, let's do it. He just blamed him for starting the war, essentially, and literally put that right on the record there for historians to know in the future that when we went to war with Iran, it was Pete Hegseth, a former weekend anchor at Fox News, who suddenly becomes the Defense Secretary of the United States.
So there you go. Donald Trump throwing his Secretary of Defense under the bus. And I think there could possibly be more to it, because there's a possibility when you look at the international court, maritime laws, what happened in Venezuela, what happened in the Caribbean Sea with blowing up ships and killing people. There could be at some point some possible crimes against humanity. There could be crimes, war crimes, and those would come through the international court and those types of entities. And maybe some of these Trump administration people will end up at The Hague, testifying in the international court. And I think maybe it was, trying to pass the buck and say, hey, it wasn't my idea anyway. It was Pete Hegseth's idea. And Pete Hegseth has been like a almost like a child with the video games and the bombs and the blowing up and the football team references. And, and then Trump mentions, 55, 60,000. Maybe we'll just take, what did he say? A trip, not an excursion. He said, we'll just take a trip into Iran and take care of that threat. And so a very relevant clip. In the next clip, as has been reported in the news, Trump, attacked Iran. Israel and Trump just decided to attack Iran. They didn't talk to our strongest war partners, which is one of them has always been the UK. The United Kingdom has always been one of our main allies when we do things like this. The European Union wasn't brought in on it. NATO wasn't brought in on it. The Congress wasn't even brought in on it. It was just basically he went ahead and started a war, and now he's backtracking, saying, "Hey, well, you guys, you need to come and help us. It's the Strait of Hormuz is closed, and you need to help us open it because we all need it open." And so the UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer has been a little back and forth and polite, but in this clip, he kind of refuses to bow down to Trump and Netanyahu, and quote says, "This is not our war. No pressure can drag us to do offensive strikes against Iran. We are in defensive mode." Let's listen.
Is that for any UK action, there must be a lawful basis and a viable and thought through plan. That is why we didn't join the original offensive strikes. It is why we did take defensive action, collective self-defensive action on our own behalf when it came to the work that we're doing with our allies in the region, taking missiles out that are coming from Iran. It's also why we allowed our bases to be used for the purposes of collective self-defense. But that's an important divide. So collective self-defense, yes, and we've taken appropriate action, but this is not our war, and we are not getting dragged into this war.
And keep in mind, the UK was side by side with America after 9/11. After 9/11 happened, and Bush made the argument to the American people, to the Congress, to the other countries. The UK was hand in hand. They were making the same argument, if not even stronger, to go into Iraq and looking for weapons of mass destruction. The UK even signed on to that, as we know now, I'll be polite and say inaccurate statement that was made at the time. And so it was important to see Keir Starmer make up his mind about what is next for the UK. The next clip is really an important one. It's Senator Chris Van Hollen and of Maryland, and he's talking to Sharon Bream on Fox News, and he says, "I'll say it again: we could fully fund TSA, FEMA, the Coast Guard, and other agencies like CISA, which is a spy agency, within DHS today." And he's explaining that it's the Republicans who are blocking the efforts because they want ICE and CBP to be able to run around with masks and violently assault people and spray them with spray, and in some cases use a deadly force. Let's take a listen.
Why decide only some federal workers are going to get paid?
Well, that's not what we've done, Shannon. We've now proposed 10 times to not just fund TSA, and we could do it again today. The Senate's coming in at 1 o'clock to vote. We could vote today to open TSA and make sure all those people get paid. We've also said the same with respect to FEMA and the Coast Guard. What we've said with respect to ICE is because we've all witnessed a lawless ICE operation, including the killings of 2 American citizens, that they need to be reined in.
Okay, well, there you have it. I think the clip got cut a little short. Sorry about that. So what he's saying is that the Democrats are trying to fund these other agencies like TSA, which is holding up the entire United States in some places all over the world. And flights are canceled and flights are delayed and 3 to 5 hours in line. In Houston yesterday, I think the line went outside and it was something like 3.5 hours waiting in line or longer to get on a plane. So it's not the Democrats, it's the Republicans. And we don't really want to get into the details of the ICE, what the Democrats are asking ICE to follow policy-wise and use of force-wise, because simply what they're saying is we want ICE to act like every other law enforcement agency in the United States. We want like police, where they take into consideration your civil rights, where they take into consideration your due process. Do we have a right to enter the house? Do we have a right to stop this person? And this is constantly on a police officer's mind. What level are we at? Are we at a consensual? Are we at reasonable suspicion? Are we at probable cause? Can I arrest this person? And these are things that go through the officer's mind constantly. And that's all they're asking. They're just saying police like everyone else police. Identify yourself. Identify your agency. No masks, no brutality, no just walking up to people and getting physical before you even ask them a single question just because they have an accent. And so I thought the clip was relevant. Moving on. And this clip we were talking about yesterday. A caller called in. I think it was a caller. And there are two ICE agents, supposed ICE agents, taking a woman into custody, but they're wearing street clothes and not easily identifiable. And I don't think they identify themselves. And if criminals start to catch on, they can literally abduct people in the same manner, claiming those are ICE agents. And that's why police officers wear badges and patches and name tags, and they wear hats that say police. Because if you should, let's say, for example, you're chasing a criminal through a dark alley on an apartment complex, and they turn around and shoot and say, I didn't know it was the police. I thought it was just somebody chasing me with a gun and a mask. Well, then if the officer has to use deadly force in that alleyway, they want to be able to say that I identified myself. I told them to stop. I said it was police. And I'm identifiable because my car says police and my hat says police and my shoulder pads say police and I have a badge on. And that's why you don't send people out in hoodies and jeans to abduct people. Let's play the clip. Thank you.
I'm not sure if there's any MAGA patriots left in the country, but if you're looking at what Trump and ICE are doing in these airports and this Gestapo-like military private secret police where cops can come up and arrest you and they don't have to show a badge, they don't have to show any credentials, you don't even have to know if they're a cop or not. Like, how long before people just realize that they can just put on some type of uniform and have some type of fake badge and they can just literally come into a town, go into an airport, go in anywhere, and they can arrest, they can grab. Do you know how easy it's going to be for traffickers and kidnappers now in America to operate? Because they're going to be able to come into facilities. They're going to be able to come in unmarked vehicles, go into anywhere, pull out handcuffs, arrest somebody, make an arrest claiming to be ICE, and they can just take off. And we're now going to see people being able to be kidnapped because cartels are going to be dressed as fake ICE officers, and they don't have to show any badges. And then take that a step farther. And then how do you think this plays out for America when somebody like Gavin Newsom's back in office? Just ask yourself that question. How do you think this plays out for America? Because we're going to be voting for Gavin Newsom, I have a feeling. Because if it's Trump or the Republicans and Gavin Newsom promises to put these scumbags in prison, I'll vote for Gavin Newsom. If he plans to arrest the Trump administration and put these assholes in prison, I will vote for him.
Okay, so there you go. That's how dangerous it is for people to run around with camouflage and a bass fisherman hat and some jeans and some guns showing and a bulletproof vest and looking like an army personnel and just throwing people on the ground, a female, and just taking her away at an airport in front of the public. The next clip is CNN's Erin Burnett, which I think she's a very good reporter. And she says that sources are telling CNN tonight that Iran is actively preparing for an invasion of Karg Island, 20 miles off the coast of Iran. It's a very small island. The exports nearly 20% of the country's oil. The traps that we understand are being put out there, anti-personnel, anti-armor mines, and placed around the island. Tehran is also apparently quickly moving a large number of actual troops and air defenses into this island that Donald Trump kind of implied they may be trying to take control of. Let's listen to the clip.
Now out front tonight, the breaking news: Iran laying traps ahead of a potential American ground invasion. So here's what sources are telling CNN tonight. They say Iran is actively preparing for an invasion of Karg Island. That is that 8 square mile island at the top of the Persian Gulf, 20 miles off the coast of Iran, that exports nearly 20% of the country's oil. So obviously it's central for Iran, an artery. It's an island, in fact, that Trump has long talked about invading. Now, the traps that we understand that are being put there, okay, from CNN's reporting, anti-personnel and anti-armor mines, we understand placed around the island. And Tehran also apparently quickly moving a large number of actual troops and air defenses to this island, its crown jewel in its oil industry. So far, we understand that includes shoulder-fired surface-to-air guided missile systems as well. Now, all of these things could result in a large number of U.S. casualties if U.S. ground forces invade, according to U.S. officials and military experts. And some in Trump's inner circle are sounding the alarm, warning him that seizing that island would not resolve the issues related to the Strait of Hormuz, of course, south of there, the artery of 20% of the world's oil supply, which, of course, is essentially at a standstill. This massive military buildup comes as thousands of American troops are now making their way to the Middle East. Okay, when you go through.
So most experts are anticipating losing possibly thousands of American soldiers because, as you can see, they're already prepared for the attack on Kharg Island. They're already prepared. They have mines and they have missiles, and they're preparing anti-aircraft, anti-armor missiles, and they're ready for the attack, and they're moving troops in. So I don't know. I can't predict the future, but if I had to, I'd say that's probably going to end up being a bloodbath.